Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's just our turn. It's managed to find its way into these plants.
More COVID-19 cases at BC poultry plants and concerns about a possible meat shortage. Also,
he then allegedly grabbed her by the hair and the back of the neck and hit her head violently against the SkyTrain seats.
Is there a COVID connection to a violent attack on a woman on SkyTrain? And
so here are some tips for looking your best, even if it is just for video chats.
how to keep your hair healthy when you can't get a cut or a color.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. Workers at 2 more poultry processing plants in BC have tested positive for COVID-19.
It brings the total number of outbreaks at those facilities to 4. As Tina Lovegreen is finding out, that, coupled with shutdowns of major beef plants in Alberta, is raising concerns about Canada's meat supply.
The 4th poultry processing plant in BC to be hit with COVID-19. During a pre-screening before entering the facility, an employee said she wasn't feeling well and was sent home. Over the weekend, she tested positive.
I'm not sure if it's bad luck or if it's just the fact that it's just our turn. It's managed to find its way into these plants.
Up to 70 people work at the plant. Around 15 to 20 would have been in close contact with the employee.
We clean and disinfect the spaces every day, and even in between shifts. But it's cooler and it's damp, and I think it's probably not a bad place for a virus to exist.
Another case detected in Port Coquitlam. This time, an employee at a big industry player, Safina Foods. The company says the staff member is related to people who work at another plant where there is an outbreak. Fraser Health is investigating both the new cases, ordering all staff to be tested for the virus. But neither has been told to shut down just yet.
As a chicken producer, it's very scary for us.
Kendall Ballantyne produces free-range chicken, beef, and pork, and says farmers are starting to worry about what the plant shutdowns will mean for their livestock, which need to be shipped from farm to plant after a certain number of days.
We need to make sure that we're processing them at the times that we should be. So we are going to see a lot of issues if we're seeing more closures in the Lower Mainland for chicken producers.
Concerns mounting on top of an already troubled beef supply. Outbreaks at major meat plants in Alberta have caused complete or partial shutdowns.
Real pressures for beef. We are expecting beef prices to go up.
McDonald's Canada, which prides itself on using only Canadian beef, is now starting to source imported meat as supply chains struggle to meet demand. And while there are concerns about whether BC can process all of its chicken if more plants need to shut down, the industry reassures there shouldn't be a shortage and therefore no reason to panic buy. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And we are also just learning more details tonight about who else has been infected at those poultry plants. Our Tanya Fletcher is live with details now. And Tanya, we understand an inspector now has COVID-19?
Yeah, that's right, Mike. The province just confirmed this. We're not sure how many federal inspectors might be among the confirmed cases, but here's what we can tell you. We know at least one is connected to these outbreaks at the poultry processing plant, but we don't know which site in particular. We also don't know whether the inspector or inspectors had coronavirus before or perhaps after going into these facilities, basically where they contracted it. The province won't be releasing any of those details, they say, because of privacy. Keep in mind, these are federal facilities that fall under the scope of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, so we're reaching out to the CFIA for further details. And now, switching gears a little bit here, today's briefing also provided an update on returning travelers. So we've learned that more than 900 temporary foreign workers have arrived here in BC in the past few weeks, and the province provided them with social and medical supports plus proper accommodation to meet that 14-day quarantine requirement. Now, this is interesting. At least 4 of those 900 workers who came in on 4 separate flights wound up testing positive for COVID-19.
So it just speaks to us of how important it is to keep up these measures, to support people, to make sure that they can do what we need them to do, and to be able to identify people who have symptoms, get them tested, and be able to support them medically as well through getting over their COVID-19 if that arises.
Now, meanwhile, a total of 15,000 travelers have returned to BC since April 10th. Remember, that was when those returning travelers have been started to require to fill out that form and present it to authorities detailing, how they plan to self-isolate, where all those things. Here's the form here that we showed you a few weeks ago. The majority today, we're learning, have had sufficient self-isolation plans as ordered by the government, but about 100 of them did not, and so they have been put into quarantine by the province. All right, that's all. Anita, Mike, back to you.
Thanks very much, Tanya. The state of emergency in BC has been extended again, this time until May 12th. Premier John Horgan says British Columbians have exceeded expectations in flattening the COVID infection curve. But no matter when things get back to normal, he cautions behavior around sickness has to change.
It's critically important now going forward because we have to change that behavior for all time. Dr. Henry says it's not forever, it's just for now. In this case, I think forever, we have to try and find a way that people don't go to work when they could be potentially contagious.
He says he himself has done it in the past, but no more, adding the issue of sick pay is going to be addressed going forward.
The move to clear illegal campers out of city parks in Vancouver and Victoria is underway again tonight. The province confirming 33 campers have now been relocated from Oppenheimer Park on Vancouver's downtown east side, and another 41 from Topaz Park in Victoria. The move follows a sweeping plan by the province to move tent city residents into hotels during the COVID-19 pandemic. A Vancouver woman says she was hit with COVID-19 twice, and that has caught the attention of a BC infectious diseases specialist.
He wants to find out if the coronavirus reactivated and the woman suffered a relapse, or if she was infected a second time. As Eric Rankin from our CBC Vancouver Impact team reports, the case could have big implications for the rest of us.
36-year-old Shalane Garusi is a COVID-19 conundrum. She caught the coronavirus in early March, appeared to recover by the end of that month. Then on April 7th, her symptoms came roaring back, just as other members of her extended family started to get sick. Garusi is now recovering for the second time.
It's a medical mystery to all and to myself. I am as puzzled.
The question, did Garusi's first infection reactivate and spread to her family, or was she reinfected by them, catching it twice? Either scenario could have major implications. This infectious diseases specialist wants to review her case because health experts are trying to figure out if antibodies we generate to fight COVID provide any lasting protection, key to a potential vaccine.
Some people may develop antibodies, some people may not develop antibodies, and even if these antibodies are there, they may not be completely protective. These are all things that we do not yet know because this is such a new virus.
Recurrence of COVID-19 in previously recovered patients has been seen in places hit early by the disease, such as South Korea. So far, medical experts have said the second round doesn't appear to be as infectious to others. That could fly in the face of what happened to Garusi's household. 3 members of her family, including her sister, contracted the coronavirus. Then Garusi got sick again.
If there is a possibility of reoccurrence, when is this vicious circle going to end in the household?
But rather than Garusi making her family sick, she might have caught COVID-19 a second time from them.
It may be that even if you have had it once and you clear it, that you can still get reinfected.
That worries Garusi.
I really hope it's not the case, because then we are in a bigger trouble than we think we are.
Vancouver Coastal Health says it's seen no evidence of reinfection in more than 800 cases, but VCH is now watching Garusi and her family to check on their recovery. Eric Rankin, CBC News, Vancouver.
Transit police are asking for your help tonight in tracking down a suspect after a woman was pushed and punched on the face in SkyTrain.
It happened this past weekend, and police say the woman has been left badly hurt. Dan Bird has more on this now. He joins us live. Dan, what do we know about what led to this attack?
It's still not clear yet, Anita. Take a close look at this video, though. Transit police say a woman boarded the SkyTrain at Waterfront Station early Saturday. Police say she was approached by a man who had been staring at her. When she asked if something was wrong, the man reportedly said, quote, "You people are why my daughter is sick." The force says the victim is a young adult and a visible minority. The man allegedly grabbed her bag, punched her, and pushed her through the train doors at Burrard Station. Police say he also grabbed her phone and threw it against a wall. He got off the train at King George Station.
The woman sustained an injury to the top of her eye, a bloody nose, and swelling of her face.
The suspect is said to be a South Asian man, 40 to 50 years old, 5'5" to 5'7" tall, with a medium build and salt and pepper beard. He was wearing a black jacket, green hoodie, and blue jeans. If you have seen the suspect or know who he is, you're asked to call transit police. Again, we don't know yet why the woman was attacked. Anita?
Thanks, Dan. Domestic violence groups say they haven't seen a spike in cases since the pandemic began. However, they are preparing, along with the government, for a possible surge. The province announcing today 300 additional spaces across BC for people leaving violent or unstable situations, with more spaces to come. If you or someone you know needs help, contact the number or email on your screen. Advocacy groups say there is some concern people aren't coming forward because they think services are closed or have no space.
Well, they were just starting to make a new life in Canada when the pandemic changed everything.
Housing, jobs, and supports suddenly a lot harder to come by. Laura Lynch looks at how refugees are coping with coronavirus.
What's normally a skier's dream, no lift lineups, untouched hills, is now part of the nightmare in Whistler. The coronavirus has shut down the village. It's empty of both tourists and laid-off workers.
I don't know, it depends.
But for some, it's also torn apart the promise of a new life in a new land.
I was really happy that day.
Syrian refugee Hamza Al-Nas and his partner Yulia found jobs at a hotel shortly after arriving here in January. Just over a month later, the virus shredded the economy.
We lost our jobs, unfortunately. And the house we're living also is that comes with the job. But we have to leave the house as well.
Now he can't sleep, has panic attacks. He says it's as if he's back in war-torn Syria.
It really triggers a lot of things. It's like, it scares me a lot. So I think that's why it triggers the anxiety in me.
I'm Dr. Rashid. I'm one of the
That vulnerability is what can set refugees apart in this pandemic.
Many people have lived through horrific trauma. So, we see people who've lived through torture and war, who've been estranged from family. Sometimes they've seen family members killed.
The anxiety may be even worse for refugees who arrive unable to speak English or French, like the 6 recently arrived families living in temporary housing here in Vancouver.
We'd love some leads for these families to be able to transition out of our temporary facility, where they've been for 2, 3, 4 months now, into permanent housing.
There is one refugee who probably knows more than most about dealing with isolation. Syrian Hassan Al-Kantar attracted global attention when he was stuck in the arrivals hall at the airport in Kuala Lumpur for 8 months. Welcome to Canada just over a year ago, he is also living in Whistler. He's also lost his job. He's living alone in the resort spa where he used to work.
I have an experience from. It's not my first time, but this time it's a piece of cake.
Much easier too, he says, than surviving war.
You need to know how we lived as Syrians for the last 9 years. We used to play with death. We were living on the edge.
So this is the chickpeas.
Al-Kantar has started decidedly low-tech cooking classes on his Facebook page, a way, he says, to share a message of resilience with other refugees and Canadians in general.
To tell them that this is a temporary thing. We can get through it. They need to be patient. They need to think as Syrians, to be calm and to live day by day.
And so everyone waits for this village to return to its vibrant normal. But for some, it also means waiting to truly start over in their new country, Canada. Laura Lynch, CBC News, Whistler.
There is a new development tonight in the ongoing negotiations between the Wet'suwet'en people and the federal and provincial governments. The Wet'suwet'en have come to an agreement on future title negotiations and settling Indigenous territorial claims. According to a hereditary chief, the Wet'suwet'en people have reached consensus and have agreed to sign a memorandum of understanding with the governments over the management of their lands. Further details have yet to be released. It's important to note that this development does not resolve the ongoing conflict over the Coastal GasLink natural gas pipeline. Time for our first look at the forecast, joined by meteorologist Brett Soderholm. I can give you a live update from Deep Cove. Brett, the showers are here. In fact, they arrived with a vengeance about an hour ago.
Okay, well, this would explain why I'm starting to feel just a few drops on my balcony here downtown. It looks like the rain is going to be making its way into the downtown core in probably the next half an hour, so certainly going to make my next segment out here a little bit more interesting. But let's take a look at the live satellite and radar imagery I've got going for you to kind of give you a better picture of what we're talking about here. You can see that right now the bulk of the rain really is situated over southern portions of Vancouver Island, but as Mike said, they've already made it in parts of Deep Cove, the North Shore area, and this is going to be carrying on, honestly, for the next couple of hours. As a result, our temperatures are taking a little bit of a cooler spell at the moment, still not too far off the seasonal average. Anywhere around 13 and 14 degrees is pretty well the normal at this point in time. But if you've been wondering where the warmest spot was today, in the province at least, this would be Princeton, 23.3, but not the hottest in the country. There's been a lot of warm air over Alberta and Saskatchewan, so it's going to be a close second. But in terms of our weather back here in Vancouver, yeah, showers still going to be the risk for the next couple of hours, clearing out throughout the overnight. Tomorrow morning, once again, another slight chance for showers, but beyond that, into the afternoon, the sun should be coming back, and we're going to be dealing with temperatures a lot warmer than what we experienced today.
Talk to you again in a bit. Thanks, Brett.
And with kids out of school and parents working from home, concerns are being raised by BC eye doctors about the amount of time people are spending sitting in front of a screen. Joining me now is Dr. Harbir Sian. What are you worried about here? What could happen to the eyes long term if we are spending even more time in front of a screen?
Well, Anita, with this sudden and significant increase in screen time, there definitely are some factors that we need to be aware of. In the short term, staring at screens, we don't blink nearly enough, and that can result in things like dry eye, symptoms such as burning, itching, stinging eyes. And the other concern, of course, is that digital screens tend to give off something we call blue light, which is a high energy light, which is quite difficult for our eyes to absorb, and that can result in a lot of strain and headaches and blurred vision, in fact. And with blue light, there's more long-term potential effects. As we know, blue light can affect our sleep-wake cycle, also known as our circadian rhythm, which can result in difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep.
Well, that being said, what are you hearing from patients? Are you already seeing people come in with problems or give you a call with problems?
Yeah, absolutely. We're dealing with these on a daily basis. In fact, multiple phone calls and video calls every day. And the most common, maybe most prominent symptoms are dry eye related, burning, stinging, irritated eyes, people having trouble keeping their eyes open just because they're so irritated from staring at screens. And again, in those cases, we're able to manage those over the phone or via video consultation and prescribe medications if necessary or recommend certain eye drops.
How are you telling people that they can manage the damage that's being done to their eye right now? What are some tips for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the old recommendations don't quite apply as well here during COVID, as it's kind of unavoidable. Kids have to do their schoolwork on screens. So we're allowing some allowances here to spend more time on screens, but recommending that we take regular breaks. We recommend something we call a 20-20 rule, which means every 20 minutes you take a 20-second break. And every hour, make sure that every hour you're getting up from the desk and moving around and getting the blood flowing. We also know that spending more time outdoors can be very beneficial for our eyes in the long term, so we recommend getting outdoors as much as possible. And ergonomics can play a big role. Having your computer at a certain height, not sitting on your lap, can play a big role. And doing things to protect your eyes from blue light. So that could mean changing the hue on the screen, which some tablets and phones will allow you to do, or wearing a product like blue light blocking glasses, which can help protect your eyes as well. And again, when it comes to glasses and other things like that for urgent care, we are able to help patients in the office if there's broken glasses or other concerns like that. We're happy to triage and make recommendations over the phone or via video consultation.
Did not know blue light glasses exist. Might have to get some of those myself.
Yeah.
Dr. Javier Cian, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Well, if you haven't already done it, be sure to download the CBC Gem app. You can watch this newscast live, and it's also where you can find other CBC programs. CBC Vancouver also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And of course, you can follow Mike and me on Twitter and Instagram as well.
As government wage subsidies begin to arrive and some provinces ease restrictions, businesses are preparing to reopen. Coming up, why some employers are having a hard time getting staff to actually come back.
Thanks for staying with us online for more COVID-19 coverage during the television commercial break. COVID-19 is not hitting children as hard as adults, and it can present differently too. Canadian pediatricians are now warning about one particularly unusual symptom. Health reporter Christine Birak has more on that and what we know about the threat to kids.
Most people don't like showing off their feet, but Sadie Dohan knew something was off.
They were very itchy, almost like bug bites.
Doctors in the U.S. and Canada were recently sent an alert. Look out for cases of kids with purple, swollen toes.
Sometimes they're hot and painful. Sometimes the children are otherwise well.
The condition has been dubbed COVID toes, and doctors are being told to test patients for the virus.
The skin findings themselves are a self-resolving phenomenon and shouldn't be a cause for concern. But it is important that physicians be aware that this condition may be a sign of COVID-19.
Children pick up plenty of germs. The coronavirus is no exception. But in some ways, this virus is different.
COVID is acting differently than most other typical illnesses, such as influenza. It hasn't been really making children very sick.
Chinese researchers found about 6% of children infected with COVID-19 became severely or critically ill. In adults, it's nearly 20%. Doctors aren't sure why, but many suspect children might have a different immune response.
With this virus being novel, the novel coronavirus, we're learning new things every single day.
In an effort to get ahead of this disease, pediatricians are sharing information globally, including reports of a rare but severe inflammatory disease that's apparently being seen in some children in Europe. But Canadian doctors say those reports are not confirmed.
We don't know how many cases there are. We don't know if it's really an increase from what you would expect. And we certainly don't know if it's linked to COVID.
In serious cases of COVID-19, doctors say children do have the same symptoms as adults. If a child has high fever, coughing, and trouble breathing, they should be rushed to emergency. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Canada's snowbirds have a new mission, Operation Inspiration.
Starting this weekend in Nova Scotia, the Canadian Forces snowbirds will head across Canada to salute Canadians doing their part to stop the spread of COVID-19. As we watch the snowbirds fly over our homes, let's remember that we are all in this together.
As the Prime Minister said, the flights will begin in Nova Scotia this weekend and then work their way west throughout the week. The snowbirds paused their training in March because of COVID-19, but they'll now spend 2 days at their home base in Saskatchewan, flying refresher and training missions before the tour begins. All right, stick with us. We'll be back in just a few moments with the latest on coronavirus headlines across the country.
As government wage subsidies begin to arrive and some provinces ease restrictions, Some businesses are preparing to reopen, but as the CBC's Cameron McIntosh reports tonight, some employers are actually having a hard time getting staff to return to their jobs.
Tony Sawicki's Winnipeg restaurant is only doing delivery. He's down from 30 employees to 8.
We don't really know how many employees we can hire back.
As he contemplates reopening, he's finding some don't want to come back.
If we open magically in 2 weeks, how do we make coming to work with the uncertainty of any kind of business more attractive than them sitting at home collecting $500 a week?
The Canada Emergency Response Benefit provides up to $500 a week for up to 16 weeks, intended for people that lose their income but not necessarily their job, or need to stay home, say to take care of a child. But now, across the retail and hospitality industries, employers say they're having a hard time competing with it.
We've actually even had feedback from employees telling them that their accountants are even saying that it's more beneficial for them to stay at home.
So how much did that cost?
There are even worries it could slow the reopening of the economy.
I want to appeal to individuals across the province that this is a short-term fix.
The Prime Minister says he expects businesses and employees to act in good faith.
Ideally, people will keep their connections with their workplaces so that they can know that they have a job to return to when this is over.
At the end of the day, Canada has to get back to work.
Ultimately, this labor lawyer says employers hold the hammer. If a workplace is safe, refusal to work is cause for dismissal and loss of all benefits.
So effectively, the employee would be fired?
Yes, the employee would be fired for not returning to the workplace. A lot of employers aren't doing that. It's pretty hard-headed.
Something Sawicki says he doesn't want to do.
Help keep your businesses alive and come back to work.
Anyone who leaves their job voluntarily would also be ineligible. Of course, the big unknown for anyone opting not to work right now would be what the job market might look like when their benefits expire. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, some Canadians are voicing their concern after receiving an unsolicited copy of a controversial newspaper. The Epoch Times published a special edition where it shared a conspiracy theory about the origin of the coronavirus and China's role. As Katie Nicholson reports, it has many worried about the consequences.
I was disgusted. I'm horrified.
This postal union representative was so upset by this front page of the Epoch Times that he filed a special request to ask that postal workers not deliver it.
We feel the front cover is promoting xenophobia towards the Asian community. It also could put some of our Asian letter carriers at risk.
The minister rejected that request, saying it does not appear to meet the required criteria of the offence of willful promotion of hatred, as established in the Criminal Code of Canada. The Epoch Times was founded by Falun Gong practitioners, the spiritual movement persecuted in China and at loggerheads with China's ruling Communist Party.
Falun Gong showed a capacity.
Those who study China aren't surprised to see the paper seize on the pandemic to take aim at Beijing.
There is so much bad blood that either side would take whatever opportunity they reasonably could to throw mud at the other.
The paper recently produced this documentary about the origin of the virus. It pushed so many debunked theories, Facebook flagged it as false information.
Just this morning, my friend sitting in front of the hospital waiting for their mother-in-law for a medical checkup, yelled at, screamed at, "You dirty Chinese."
This advocate worries the paper's inflammatory headlines hurt all Canadians.
Because this perception that Chinese equals virus is already quite prevalent in the Canadian society.
In an email, the Epoch Times acknowledged some people may have erroneously conflated criticism of the Chinese Communist Party with criticism of the Chinese people, but said the party does not represent Chinese people. When asked, the paper didn't say what steps it could take to quell the fears of Asian Canadians afraid its headlines could make them targets of hate. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Armed Forces is confirming a helicopter deployed from a Canadian frigate in the Mediterranean is missing tonight. These are recent images of HMCS Fredericton, which is currently taking part in a NATO exercise in the Mediterranean. It lost contact a few hours ago with its CH-148 Cyclone helicopter. Unconfirmed reports say it went down in the sea near the Greek island of Cephalonia. It's about 250 kilometers due west of Athens. A search and rescue operation is underway there. No other information about the incident or who was on board is being released at this time.
Coming up after the break, a UBC chemistry instructor is answering your questions on cleaning effectiveness when it comes to COVID-19. Give us a call, 604-662-6801, or send your inquiries in our live chat on Facebook or YouTube.
And thanks for staying with us online for more news during the television commercial break. Well, handmade face masks are becoming very popular, especially ones made by Indigenous artists using traditional beading and crafting techniques. They are not intended for medical use. Instead, the artists say they wanted to make a statement about what is happening around the world. Many of them include symbols that are significant to the artist's family or community. Well, if you scroll through social media these days, you may notice more people flexing their bartending skills while stuck at home. Ali Chason looks at how home isolation is reviving this retro trend.
What are you going to make me?
A Negroni.
Who's been the Stanley Tucci of your friend group? On Instagram, flexing their new at-home cocktail making skills? With many Toronto bars now selling alcohol and delivering cocktail kits, don't be surprised if your friend has a freshly shaken daiquiri the next time you dial them.
In 1961 or 62, I think the daiquiri was like the most popular cocktail in North America, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that JFK and Jackie were fond of them.
Cocktail historian Christine Sismondo says the new at-home bartending trend is quite retro.
In the 1950s, there was a certain amount of pride in being able to mix this up.
This is back when you could actually have people in your living room for cocktail hour.
A home bar, when did that fall out of fashion?
People started drinking less in general. Also, vodka became more popular. So a lot more people just wanted a really simple cocktail in the 70s and had like vodka mixed with orange juice instead of making like the ornate, old-fashioned and figuring out how to do everything from scratch.
Bars like Project Gigglewater have been selling cocktail kits so you can make their cocktails from scratch.
People just order through Instagram or email.
It's just owner Alfred Sue at the bar these days, slicing garnishes, making syrups, trying to make ends meet during the closure.
So I was like, okay, I gotta do this.
They've been selling about 30 a week.
Yeah, it's definitely helping to pay the rent.
Probably not going to go right back into, okay, the bars are open and everything goes back to normal. Probably the first thing that is going to happen is we're going to be allowed to have small gatherings. And what better than to be able to show off your cocktail making skills that you learned during the pandemic.
Thank you.
Yay! Okay, so I got the Get Hype and Skype cocktail kit because obviously I thought it was fitting. Tequila. Mix, little garnish. All of this tequila in here. There's 6 servings, don't at me. I don't have a cocktail shaker, so this is gonna have to do. It's cocktail hour by the time this airs, right? Okay. Cheers.
All right, and cheers. In just a second, Anita will be talking to a UBC chemistry instructor about cleaning techniques during this pandemic. Stay right here. Here are some of the stories we are following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
The woman sustained an injury to the top of her eye, a bloody nose, and swelling of her face.
Transit police are looking to identify a man who allegedly punched a woman on a Vancouver SkyTrain and then pushed her through the open doors. It happened April 25th. Police say the woman asked the man if something was wrong. He responded by saying, quote, "You people are why my daughter is sick." The man is described as South Asian, 40 to 50 years old, roughly 5'5" to 5'7" tall.
More people have died from COVID-19 in BC, all residents of long-term care homes. That brings the total number of deaths to 109. 2 more outbreaks at long-term care homes as well.
It's a very clean environment because we clean and disinfect the spaces every day, and even in between shifts. But it's cooler and it's damp, and I think it's probably not a bad place for a virus to exist.
Workers at 2 more poultry processing plants in BC have tested positive for COVID-19. That brings the total number of outbreaks at those facilities to 4. The plants haven't been ordered to shut down at this point, but the industry says if more facilities do need to close, it could cause problems with processing the product.
And welcome to our live Q&A, where we take your COVID-19 questions to the experts. Today, we are focusing on cleanliness, how and when you should be cleaning yourselves, objects, or groceries during the pandemic. You can ask over email, over the phone, or contact us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will try to get to as many questions as we can. Joining me now is Jay Wickenden, a senior instructor in chemistry at the University of BC. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Anita. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get right to it. Janet Lee Bucknow on Facebook is asking, if I go swimming this summer and I make contact with another swimmer in the pool, is that a COVID-19 transmission risk?
So in that particular scenario, I would say that we should be observing social distancing if that policy still is in place. So coming into contact with somebody should be prevented by just observing social distancing, even in a swimming pool. I'm not aware personally of where the status would be of swimming pools in the summer, so I would just advise everybody to listen to what the government is telling us to do if and when that does come up.
Fair enough. Anita Nidger on Facebook is asking, would a steam cleaner for floors be effective in killing the virus?
So steam is a disinfectant, but that is done in a controlled setting. For example, in a hospital or a laboratory, we have autoclaves. And this is basically, it's heat, time, and pressure often that will disinfect viruses. Now, the steam cleaners that we have at home, I personally don't think they're going to be strong enough to disinfect to the level that you would be thinking of doing overall. So I just don't think a steam cleaner, like the one that you would have at home, is going to be do the job as effectively as you would think it should do.
Well, Monica wonders, does it matter what the temperature of the water you're using is? So I guess we can talk about that for hands, but also for anything else that you're cleaning.
Yeah, so the temperature of steam, for example, is very hot. I'm not sure if we know the thermal stability of COVID-19. It is a new virus. So overall, I'm not aware of the answer to that question. When it comes to washing your hands, I would say warm running water and soap. Like we've always washed our hands before, but do follow the minimum of 20 seconds. So singing happy birthday to yourself twice is a way of kind of monitoring that would be how I would recommend it. When it comes to boiling of foods and other products like that, I would do everything that we've always been doing, right? So COVID-19 is a respiratory virus, and the chances of transmission on food products is low, according to the government.
Jay, I know you're prepared for this one. I understand there is a right way to clean your phone. Can you show us what that right way is? And also tell us why it's so important to do it so often.
So your cell phone, I've seen a bunch of quotes online, and one is that your cell phone is your third hand that you've never washed. And it's true, we carry these devices with us literally everywhere, and we very seldom have ever cleaned them before. So the first thing I'll say to every viewer here is that you should always consult the manufacturer's recommended cleaning process for your cellular telephone or whatever device you're looking at cleaning. So for example, I have an iPhone, and I literally went on to Apple's website today to see what they're recommending for cleaning of their product. So the first thing is Apple is recommending, and you can check this on Apple's support website, that you can either use Clorox disinfecting wipes, or you can get 70% or greater alcohol and put it onto a rag and then wipe the surface area down. So this is my iPhone, and the areas I want to focus on are the high contact areas, right? The front of the phone, the back of the phone. There's a lovely picture of my young daughter in this case. And what you would do is you would take the first step in this process would be using a microfiber cloth. So this is like the one that you would have to clean your eyeglasses. Don't use paper towel or just any generic towel that you have around, because it could scratch the surface. And the first thing you want to do with this is to get any debris off of the phone, because you don't want to put pressure on it and scratch the front of the phone. Then you would take the microfiber rag and you would wet it with whatever cleaning solution that you've got. In this case, it would either be Clorox disinfecting wipes for the iPhone or the rubbing alcohol. And then just wipe down the area gently with the solution, both the front and then the other high contact areas in the back. And then just let that sit until it would evaporate and has done its disinfecting job. Now, I would say it also cautions on the website, do not use bleach solutions, so follow the manufacturer's guidelines, and do not get moisture inside of the openings of the phone. This would be like the switches and the knobs that may be exposed on the sides to turn the volume on and off on an iPhone, for example. You want to avoid getting liquids in there. So just be as careful as possible when cleaning the phone.
Okay, well, I guess it was a bad idea for me to use bleach last night to clean my phone. Okay, a caller wants to know if homemade masks are washed with hot soapy water and ironed, are they safe to reuse?
So I'm not really an expert in the reusing of the mask. What I would say is that soap and warm water is effective at disassembling the COVID virus. We know that these soap molecules can basically start to dissolve the outer envelope of the virus, and it will get rid of the virus. Now, whether you can reuse that mask, again, I don't want to really comment on that because I'm not an expert in that field.
Okay. Doug B. Bachelor on Facebook says, should I be more aware of cleaning my kitchen area?
I don't really think that we need to focus on cleaning the kitchen area any more than usual. What I would say is that the kitchen is typically, it should be cleaned a little more rigorously. We do handle food products, raw meats, for example. We want to make sure it's as clean as possible. But as the government stated, the chances of transmitting COVID on food products is low, incredibly low, and maybe has not even been documented yet. I don't think we have to go above and beyond in those cases to disinfect our kitchen area, more so than usual.
Donna asks via email, will vinegar kill the virus on vegetables?
So vinegar is a solution of a compound we call acetic acid or ethanoic acid. And vinegar, obviously, we put it on French fries. So it's acidic, but it's not really acidic. We can consume it, and it gives us a tangy taste overall. Now, vinegar is not going to be strong enough to disinfect for viruses like COVID-19. So I don't really think it's necessary to use it on vegetables, for example. I would follow the regular cleaning protocols we've always done, which is just warm running water and kind of physical abrasion on the outside of the vegetables should be adequate enough to cook your food and clean your food.
Okay, Jay, we have about 20 seconds here. Hand sanitizer or soap, which one's more effective?
I think they're both good. I think there was, obviously, we all know, a huge run on hand sanitizer back in early March. But I mean, soap does a very good job, and there's lots of soap around, and it can be dish soap when you're hand doing your dishes. It can be shampoo. Any of those things have compounds that are like soap. Now, hand sanitizer I use when I don't have regular access to soap and running water, right? So I'll have some in my car, or when I'm going for a long walk, for example, if I'm going somewhere, which isn't too often, then in those cases, I'll have some hand sanitizer so I can disinfect on the spot. But I prefer soap and running water because I just have lots of soap and running water around.
Jay Wickenden, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Anita.
6:44. A live look at downtown Vancouver tonight. Soggy downtown Vancouver. On again, off again showers throughout the day today for much of the South Coast. Decidedly on again right now downtown and here in Deep Cove. But might the sun make a return this week? Brett's forecast is coming next.
Movie fans of Bollywood and Hollywood are mourning the death of actor Irfan Khan today. You may remember Khan from movies like Slumdog Millionaire and Life of Pi, an actor who was a star in Bollywood before becoming one of the most respected Indian actors anywhere. Khan died in Mumbai following a 2-year battle with a rare cancer. He was 53 years old.
Well, some relief in sight tonight for beleaguered residents of Fort McMurray, Alberta.
The ice jams that have caused extensive flooding appear to be decreasing. As Rafi Bouchikanian reports, that can't happen soon enough.
We got paddles. Oh, life jackets are under there. Take her easy. Keep going.
For Jessica Raymond, it's all been overwhelming.
I just feel like I'm numb at this point. I think I've had my emotions already because after I talked to the insurance adjuster and I realized I have no coverage whatsoever.
Her wedding was already postponed due to the pandemic. Now she has a new nightmare.
My wedding dress is sitting in my house. I have no insurance, nothing, because I live on a floodplain, and the water level is above my garage door.
Like everywhere else, Fort McMurray was already dealing with COVID-19 when this happened. This hotel, shut down due to a lack of business, now houses evacuees like Henry Osabor.
It was challenging. Like the first day I came here, I wanted to go straight to the elevator and I saw some guys waiting. I have to, stay back. One person at a time, so you don't touch things anyhow. When you get into your room, you want to quickly wash.
Some of those coronavirus restrictions have now been lifted to allow people to work together to save what they can, while others wait for news on the homes they've had to abandon.
I have my books and my PC for Google Classroom and stuff, and I'm doing really well.
Today, Fort McMurray's mayor said the number of buildings affected is now half that of the 2016 wildfire, while the premier is hopeful the massive raft of ice that caused the flooding is starting to shrink.
We are encouraged to see the ice jams are beginning to clear on both the Athabasca and the Peace Rivers, and that water volumes are starting to go down.
And Fort McMurray continues to face it together. Rafi Bouchikanian, CBC News, Fort McMurray.
Scary stuff, Brett, and I know they're talking about how things are going to get better, hopefully. What are you seeing with what you're tracking?
Yeah, absolutely the same thing. I'm noticing a pretty strong increase in temperature across parts of northern Alberta, and it may be a little bit counterintuitive, but that actually is going to be a good thing to help break up a little bit more of that ice and allow it to go on its way, which should, in theory, reduce some of that flooding. And I wanted to show you the areas that we're talking about specifically. I put a little map together. Of course, everyone is caring about Fort McMurray, but there is another one that is happening in Fort Vermilion. The numbers that you're seeing there in yellow, these represent temperatures, and you can see we are staying above freezing for the next foreseeable future, and it is in fact going to be quite warm by tomorrow afternoon in places like Fort McMurray, getting up to about 16 degrees. Now in green though, that is indicative of some rain that's going to be falling in the region, and that's not exactly what we would hope for, but I do believe that this model is probably doing a little bit more than necessary. I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as it may look, but certainly those warmer temperatures are going to contribute to an overall improving situation. Now in terms of rain, yep, presently raining outside here in Vancouver, and that is still going to be the trend for the next couple of hours and really fairly widespread across the province of BC. We're looking at showers continuing through about the overnight period before it eventually clears up. Now, I do want to draw attention to what's happening in northern BC as well, of course, where flooding is a concern. Once again, we have a risk for showers and thunder showers that could be embedded within these storms tomorrow afternoon for places like Prince George and even down into Williams Lake. So, of course, they're on a knife's edge right now in terms of their water levels, and any additional localized heavy rain in the region is not particularly good news. Down into the Kootenays and the Okanagan, it is looking dry and is likely to be another fairly mild day tomorrow as well. Temperatures, as far as they are concerned in the north, are going to be behaving quite well. We're looking at seasonal values from Prince Rupert over to Prince George, and the same thing is going to be applying farther to the south. If we look at temperatures widespread across the southern half of BC, looking at temperatures in the Okanagan likely into the high teens, if not the low 20s, and across parts of Metro Vancouver, Vancouver and Vancouver Island, we're going to see our temperature values go up all the way through till the end of the week. Now, the reason for this temperature increase is pretty straightforward. We're going to see our good old friend the sun once again. This is going to be tomorrow after a risk for a bit of showers first thing in the morning. But come Friday, it's looking like pretty well the nicest day of the week if you enjoy the sunshine. And yet, more rain is going to be coming as called for on Saturday.
Okay, thanks very much, Brett. Well, it's been weeks since hair salons in the province were closed. So if you are looking a little frazzled, we've got some hair care tips for you coming up after the break.
This is a call out to any junior scavenger hunters. CBC Vancouver's digital scavenger hunt is taking place April 27th until May 1st. Kids of all ages can take part in this scavenger hunt from home. Participate every day for more chances to win a limited edition CBC Vancouver backpack full of prizes. Plus, you could score an invite to an exclusive online concert with Will Strout from Will's Jams. For more info, head to cbc.ca/scavenger hunt.
Okay, way back on March 21st, the province ordered all hair salons in BC to close because of the pandemic. And now, more than a month later, you might be starting to notice a lot of shaggy mops and split ends out there.
Definitely noticing that, Mike. So our CBC makeup artist and hairstylist Megan Zwick, who's advising us all from home these days and who we miss very much, has some tips for home self-care.
With at-home haircuts just a little too daunting for most of us, we need to find other ways to deal with the dry and frizzy split ends that we would normally get cut off every few months. So here are some tips for looking your best, even if it is just for video chats. Avoiding unnecessary heat from blow dryers, flat irons, and curling irons can help keep the fried ends at bay. Instead, opt for air drying. It takes a bit more time, but most of us have that these days. If you're someone with longer hair, give yourself a break from high and tight ponytails and buns. These types of styles can put strain on the scalp and potentially lead to breakage. If you are going to tie your hair up, keep it low and try using soft ties like scrunchies. Or you can try other heatless styles like braids. There's a ton of variation to choose from and YouTube is filled with video tutorials. If you have short hair, consider a product like pomade to help disguise the length. Use it to keep your hair closer to the scalp and it'll seem a little less poofy and unruly. A hair mask is a deep conditioning treatment used to help heal dry and damaged hair. Try making one at home using coconut oil. Melt it to a liquid, apply it to the ends of your hair, leave it on for 15 to 30 minutes, and then shampoo and condition as normal. And if all else fails, well, just have a hat handy for your next Skype date.
Yeah, it's all about the next Skype date. Thanks, Megan, for that awesome advice, and we do miss you. We all miss you. As for the hair, Mrs. K has done a little trim job for me, and son number 2 has also employed her services. He wasn't very happy earlier today, though. I can say that. We're all trying.
Well, at least you let her do it. I've been trying to convince my husband to let me cut his hair this whole time, and so far it's a no-go. So thanks again, Megan. That was great. We are going to leave you tonight with a song written by the legendary Joe Keithley, now a Burnaby City Councillor. He's joined by Burnaby Mayor Mike Hurley. This is called We Are All in This Together. Good night.
Well, you have to make a stand. You gotta help your neighbors all across this land. And the frontline workers who fight to keep us safe, they are brave souls.